If 87% of the population in this state neither have the competence, nor the integrity, nor the commitment to manage what is very precious to them, I am raising this issue, I am not a protester, I am not an agitator. This is a democratic right. Before the election, I will say what I have to say. Post-election, whoever people elect, I will bow down and support those people because this is my idea of democracy. Democracy means bowing down to people's will.
Sadhguruji, there is obviously an element of oversight that is required. Now, are you saying that temples that are managed by their own authorities or by the community will be able to overcome temptations of pilferage, institutional malfeasance? Would it be okay to do that in that sense? I mean, you're going from state control and directly handing precious assets really to individuals who may not want to work in a transparent manner. Now, how do you therefore mitigate against that, sir?
Rahul, first thing is the assets don't belong to the state, the assets belong to the community, all right? You're not giving any charity to the community, it is something that always belonged to them. Because of this aberration of occupation and external rule, these things have happened. It's time to correct that. Now the question that you're asking is, can you trust the Hindu community to be straight, to manage things well? If 87% of the population in this state neither have the competence, nor the integrity, nor the commitment to manage what is very precious to them, and somebody else has that commitment and integrity, I'm very sorry, that is not the way. Let the political parties clearly state, we think the Hindu community does not have people who have necessary integrity, nor competence, nor commitment to manage these things. Let them say it, let's see how elections will happen. I am raising this issue, I am not a protester, I am not an agitator. This is a democratic right. Pre-election, before the election, I want not myself, every citizen in this country to state what they want. Where before the election you don't say anything, after the election you cry, I am not that kind. Before the election, I will say what I have to say. Post-election, whoever people elect, I will bow down and support those people because this is my idea of democracy. Democracy means bowing down to people's will.
Joining us now is Sadhguruji of the Isha Foundation, and he's somebody who has also very actively spoken about the need for the Tamil Nadu government to let go of the control over Hindu temples or Hindu religious institutions. Sadhguruji, let me start with your thought, because we here have said that it's time to take the right stand to free Hindu temples. But let me understand from you.
So let me bring a little historical perspective to how these things have happened. It all started with a regulation, a Madras regulation. It was called the Madras Regulation of 1817. So this was done by East India Company, not even by the British government. Then by 1840, the resistance built up within their own society that Christian men were managing pagan temples. So resistance came up in England. So in 1840, they wanted to give it back. So they put out a directive and said, okay, hand it over to the trustees. By then they had taken over, trusts were dismantled, all this had happened. So few main temples they handed over. By 1845, most of the temples were handed over, important ones. Then they passed a Religious Endowment Act in 1863, with which they made a complete handover of the religious institutions and endowments back to the Hindu community. Then in 1925, they passed a Madras Religious and Charitable Endowment Act. This included all religions. By now, this was a strategy to stem the independence movement in the country, and they found whether it's a mosque or a church or a temple, all of these things were becoming hubs for people to meet and come together and act. So they tried to take over all religious institutions, but there was a vigorous resistance from the minorities, so they excluded them and brought the act only for the Hindus, as it was called as the Hindu Endowment Act, Hindu Temple and Endowment Act, whatever it was called. Then further, they tightened the screws in 1935 that they could give, like a notification to any temple to take it over. And this is all happening before independence, but post-independence, in 1951, they passed this law of Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Acts 1951. And many provisions of this 1951 Act were struck down, both by the Madras High Court and the Supreme Court. So So during the Kamaraj era in 1959, they passed another Tamil Nadu Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Act was passed, which is still in operation right now. With this, over 37,000 temples are in government control. So what is the issue here? The issue is, one thing is, it's a disgrace that in a secular country that one community… I mean, if you say this in any other country, if you mention this, nobody will believe you. Nobody will believe. In India, religious institutions are managed by the government. So secular institutions means they should have no business with any religious institution. When we talk about the Hindu temples, immediately there's a whole group of people who'll say, then take over churches also, take over mosques also. I'm saying the government has no business to touch a mosque or a church or a temple or a gurudwara or anything for that matter. Right now, there is one problem, so let us multiply the problem. That is not a solution, all right? The important thing is the devotees should manage the temple, because fundamentally the Indian temples were not created as places of prayer. There is no single person leading a prayer for a group of people. It is largely different types of energy centers where people can go, soak themselves in that energy, whatever, whether you believe or not. It is true for millions and millions of people, for millennia. It has been the experience of people. Whether you believe, you don't believe, that is your issue. But in terms of basic human rights, this must happen. In terms of constitutional rights as fundamental rights, this must happen. But now there's a whole lot of people arguing. Their argument is generally, but it was under kings, and kings are also government, so it was always under government. This is not true, because kings were devotees. Kings were very strong devotees to such a point, in many kingdoms, the deity was the king. The king was a divan or a minister for the deity. So always the deity ruled, only in the deity's name he ruled the country. So they were a different people altogether, and there also the contributions came from the people to build the temples. Above all, these are… especially the South Indian temples, the Tamil Nadu temples particularly, they are magnificent creations of engineering and architecture. If you see what they have done 1,000 years ago, 1,200, 1,500 years ago, you will feel proud of being human, because it's absolutely incredible in terms of engineering. The mastery of engineering that they had and how they built these structures is too phenomenal. But they're all being systematically being run down, all the artifacts are being stolen, they're all mostly gone, because people who have no feeling, no heart for the temple are managing the temple. And there are various aspects, economic aspects to it, that is not my interest. My interest is, fundamentally, if you want this country to move ahead, you don't discriminate between people. Everybody should have the same rights. This is the whole thing, one country, one law, all this we are talking everywhere, but it's not happening in a very fundamental way. So Tamil Nadu temples have to be released, because the tightest endowment act probably is in Tamil Nadu. In other states maybe it's a little more lax, but even that should not be there, that's a different matter. But here it's a proper control. Even if you build a new temple, and if it becomes a popular temple, government will send a notification to take it over. This is just ridiculous. You can't do this in any country. I'm saying even in countries like Russia or China, you don't do these things. How can you do this in a country like India, which is a secular nation, which is a democratically elected leadership, and our constitution gives absolute right for everybody to practice their religion, irrespective of what faith they are. You can even start a new faith and practice it, I'm saying. It's not that the existing faiths. You can start any new faith and practice it. When this is the case, the majority population's places of worship or their temples are being managed by the government is a very shameful thing. The pride of Tamil Nadu, the pride of this Dravidian culture, and the core and the center of Tamil philosophy, Tamil literature, Tamil music, Tamil dance, Tamil everything. The very core of everything is the temple. But now, temples have been decimated into very lifeless places. Thousands of them are falling apart. Apart from that, those who are reasonably well, their liveliness is gone. They are being run by government diktat, not by the cultural strength and the traditional sciences which were involved in building these temples. My vote is only for those who will once again revive this Dravidian pride by liberating these temples from the government clutches, once again back into the hands of Tamil devotees, the core of Dravidian culture, the soul of Tamil people. must come back into their hands so that once again it can be a vibrant, transformative process for the people here. My vote is for them. I beseech every one of you, every citizen in Tamil Nadu, that you must stand up for this. Without devotion, without the heart of the devotee, there is no temple. Temples have become monuments managed by archaeological agencies. This is not the way to maintain the temple. Temples have to be alive. For this, the heart of the devotee is very important. And on this day, over 3 crore Tamils have spoken. I beseech the political parties to take this commitment, and I beseech all the citizens, responsible citizens of Tamil Nadu to take this stance that Tamil temples should be liberated to once again grow back to their original glory.